How many of you know of someone personally who either because they themselves struggle with same-sex attraction and they were part of a church, and or look at how churches mistreat people in that category and have now been turned off from church and Christianity? How many of you know at least one person personally? Raise your hand. They're like, I can't believe in the church. They hate gays. The church hates gays, right? That's what they would say, okay? Okay, you see, if the church was godly and humble and imitating Christ's example as we study scripture, they would know that you don't necessarily have to compromise love, gentleness, and humility while retaining what you believe. The person that did that supremely is, of course, Jesus. Did he not eat with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes? You think those groups of people ever were confused that Jesus now approved of their lifestyle? Never, right? It was very clear. They knew what Jesus believed and what Jesus taught, and yet he loved them and he was kind to them. To me, I think that if we don't know the scriptures, but we have just a robotic view of what I'm saying, major and minor doctrine, we'll end up falling into these errors. Errors like, you know what, we'll just end up adding maybe even our human tradition, conservatism, or even Chinese conservatism. Here's another one. I would wager to guess that any of you, like me, that grew up in North America, either were born here or you were raised here, when you think about people that are same-sex attracted, they're gay or lesbian, either they live it or they consider themselves that way. You don't have what your parents' generation have as the uck factor. Ooh, they're gay. Ooh. You see, many Chinese churches and believers do not agree with homosexuality, it seems, not primarily because they studied the Bible and understood what the Bible teaches about it and how Jesus interacted with people that are sinners, but instead, their Asian culture already prohibits them from accepting such a lifestyle. As a result, you can see why in many Asian churches, they would end up inadvertently or perhaps willfully mistreating people that come out of the closet. Do you see that? That is why we always need to go back to this book, because if we don't, we will always be handcuffed by our cultural presuppositions, what we assume, right? Chinese people assume, oh, gay, that's wrong, right? But you and I who are Canadianized, Westernized, I don't think that. In fact, I had a friend, my best friend in high school came out as gay. I knew he was gay, but he never talked to me, so I never made him uncomfortable. He was my best friend, right? He's not a Christian, but he's my best friend. And then he later on in adult life, he talked to me, he sat me down for, I think, coffee, and he said, James, I'm actually gay. I'm like, I already knew that, and I accept you, right? But I have no uck factor in my psyche, you see? However, we have other people that are Canadianized might be a little bit too tolerant for the Bible. You and I might tolerate things more than Jesus would tolerate things. So we all have our weaknesses, is my point. My point is we need to go back to the scripture.